In this quick video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to take two images and composite them together to make a fake magazine cover. So I'm going to go ahead and get into Photoshop, do File Open, and this is the goal magazine, the one that we're going to be making. And we're going to take this male portrait and take his head and his neck and bring it into the other one. So there's a couple interesting things happening here. So the angles are not right, so just forgive me on that one. So the male portrait picture is much larger than the magazine, so we'll have to do some sizing up and down. Okay, so I'm going to start off by, I'm going to come over here to the magazine cover, and it's pretty straightforward. Let's assume that we don't need to change any of the text. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing you should always start off with is come over here and in your layers, take your background and press Command J. When you press Command J, you automatically get a new copy of it. That way, if anything goes wrong, you don't damage the original. And then I hid the background layer. Okay, with the copy layer now selected, what I want to do is I want to be able to put the guy behind the words popular science. So for this, I'm going to come up here to the top and I'm going to use the selection tools, and for this one I think the best tool is the magic wand tool. So you're first going to go to the quick selection tool and you're going to left click and hold, and then underneath it you'll choose magic wand tool, and we're going to go ahead and click on the letter C. Now if you want to add to the selection, you hold down the shift key, and when you hold down the shift key you then see a little plus symbol and you can just shift left click and basically click on all of the letters. Now this magic wand tool works because it's looking for boundaries, and since the letters are obviously one clean color, the boundaries are found perfectly. Okay, if you want to take away from the selection, instead of holding down shift, you would hold down option. Okay, so now that we've got a good selection of the letters that are involved over the head, we can now press Command J, and basically it will lift whatever is selected. Okay. Also, if you ever have anything selected and you need to get rid of it or you need to deselect, you can just come up here to Select Menu and choose Deselect or Command D. Okay. So now we have a layer of just those letters there, so that's pretty good. Now I'm going to come over here, and again I'm going to start off from my background layer. I'm going to press Command J, make a copy, dupe it. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to choose the Quick Select tool. So the Quick Select tool, you can change the size up here. You can also use the bracket keys on your keyboard. So this is open bracket, this is close bracket to make the brush size smaller or bigger. And basically you just left click or drag your pen over a boundary and it does a pretty good job. Again, depending on the photograph, it's like the magic wand tool, it's looking for boundaries. So you can see here, it basically stopped. It always has a little trouble with hair, so I'm just going to left click and kind of go up here and get most of the hair. If you're unsure about how much hair you should capture, just come and ask me. So you can see it found his jawline. I'm just going to go down here into the neck area and it found his shirt line, so that's good. So that just keeps adding to the selection, and again, if you hold down the option key, you'll get a minus symbol and you can take his neck out of the selection, and there you go. Okay, so I'm going to put his neck back in there. And again, if you go to get a good clean photo, then you're pretty much set. Okay, so now that I think I've got it, I'm going to press Command J to isolate that part. I'll hide the layer underneath, and you can see before and after. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to bring it over into this image here. So one way you can do this is I'm going to come over to the layer, right mouse click, duplicate layer, and I'm going to go ahead and call this BW portrait. Okay, so black and white portrait. Down here's the really important part. It's the destination. I don't want it to go into its own image. I want it to go to the Zuckerberg cover. So then I'll hit OK, and then I'll come back over here to the Zuckerberg. Now you might be wondering, where the heck is it? Well, if you look over here in the layers, it is here, but where? It means it's probably outside one of these boundaries here. And the reason why is because it's coming from a larger image, so its dimensions and boundaries are bigger. So now what you do is you come up here and you choose the Move tool. And when you choose the Move tool, you want to activate this tick box here that says Show Transform Controls. And that will then show you the little control handles going around, and now you can see that it's actually over here. And he's ginormous. Okay, so once you have him placed roughly where you want him to go, now we need to obviously size him down. So to make sure that there's no distortions on this layer, we don't want to stretch him at all, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to come to one of the four corners, and I'm going to Shift left click, drag him down, then I'll lift up on Shift left click, and then I'll left click and I'll drag him back in. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in, and you can zoom in with the scroll wheel of your mouse, or you can zoom in by pressing Command plus, Command minus. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to Shift click and drag him in. So my advice now is that you lower the opacity. So I'm going to take the layer here of the black and white portrait and lower the opacity, just so I can see some things like eyes and things like that. So use things like ears. If you can see the edge of the head, that's great. Again, it might not line up perfectly due to each person, but get it as best as you can, and you kind of get the idea. And just lots of little tweaks. Again, no matter what you do, don't distort the image, because you don't want the image, you don't want to just left click and drag and widen the guy's head just to fit that, because that will then distort the image. Okay, so that's pretty much good. Once you're done with the sizing and you're pretty happy with it, or you've gotten my approval on it, you're going to come up here and you're going to press the little check mark to confirm that you like the size. And now what we're going to do is we're going to drag the black and white portrait down by left clicking and dragging down, and you'll see that it goes down, under, and behind the Popular Science text. Okay, so now that we've done that, now what you could do is we could basically clean up the original Mark Zuckerberg face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the opacity of the new guy, and then I'm going to select the layer of Mark Zuckerberg down here. And this is where I'm going to try this tool right here. It's called the Spot Healing Brush, and it's a little band-aid with a little oval going around it. Again, you can change the brush size with the bracket keys. Make sure you have the correct layer selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around, and it's going to highlight in black what I want to get rid of. And when it works, it usually works really well. When it doesn't work, it kind of gets botched, unfortunately. There we go. So it's not doing a very good job. You can see here that what it's doing is I'm trying to get rid of this ear here and this little bit of his head here, and you can see that it's grabbing from all around it, and it just doesn't like it. So in this case, what I would probably do is I would come on over here and bring in the big guns here, the clone stamping tool. And the way this works, and I don't want to make this video too much longer, is you hold down the Option key and you tap or click, and then that samples a certain area. Then you come over here and you can start brushing, and you'll see that it's basically sampling that area, and there it is grabbing it. Now for good sampling, you want to definitely always want to hold down the Option key and sample from other areas. The good thing about this is that I don't need to sample too much to fix this up. Just need to make it believable. Now I'm going to go ahead and sample from up here, because it is getting darker, or sample from over here on the left. Get it like that. And there we go. And I'll turn back on the face so we can see how are things looking. Okay, so that's not bad. It's pretty well cleaned up, and if I zoom out, you can see it's not bad. You can still I can still see it if I'm being picky, but call me over and we can go ahead and do that. So that's essentially it. You now go around and you just clean up whatever you need to do. If you ever needed to get rid of the text, that's one of the techniques that you could certainly do. And you can see it's a gradient text, and there's lighting, and there's different lighting on the right hand side, so there's a lot of different techniques here. But that's basically it, so give it a shot.